Well, you know what will make me angry? This is that his husband? I'm like, no. He's like, is they're always together? I'm just like, I don't know anything.
Critical duties.
It doesn't start.
All right, their duties as assigned.
Oh. Yeah. Click away.
All right, 6 p.m. We'll call the village board meeting to order. If you'd all please join me in a moment of silence. If we could have our friends from the Legion lead us in the pledge this evening.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Clerk, do you have the roll?
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger. Trustee Charo.
Present.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Scherschel.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
President. Public announcements this evening. Mr. Olson.
All right, I got a few things. First, I want to start off with a donation from the Chatham JCs to the Chatham Police Crime Prevention Fund of $3,500. It's just our way of, helping out the people that help and protect us in the community. So I'd like to present this to you. Second off, and I guess it's kind of the same request from two different organizations. We have two events coming up. The first being the Chatham Friends of the Park. We have the Kite Festival as well as a Pawsapalooza, which is a fundraiser for the dog park. We'll be holding this in South Park or Community Park. Be about 4 or 5 bands playing. We do plan to sell food and have beer available as well. So the request here is just for the liquor license, which we will apply for, and also the, rescinding of the liquor laws during the day for that day, as well as use of the park for free.
Okay.
So, and then
Date?
The date on that would be September 21st. We will be keeping the leash law in place during this event because dogs are welcome. There'll be quite a few demonstrations from different canine units, frisbee catching dogs, kind of everything we can think of. So should be a fun event. And then also the same request for Oktoberfest to the Chatham JCs on the square, which was September 28th. Same request with the liquor and also use of the park.
Pat can guide you through how to get the license applications and everything. And we have enough time.
September 28th, yes.
Oktoberfest is in September.
It's in September.
I know that.
Just making sure you were clear.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Gentlemen?
At the park. Yes.
Next agenda.
It's usually this
Good
way.
stereo?
Yeah.
I'm the commander at the American Legion here in town. We also have a check for the Chatham Police Crime Prevention Fund for $1,000 for their help during the homecoming this year.
Sergeant Pierce, you're going to have to attend all meetings now.
Bert's going to have him photoshopped out of that anyway.
Your track record this year is stupendous.
He's going to have 2 heads, though.
Also, while we're on announcements, we'd like to congratulate Sergeant Pierce and his wife on the birth of their newest child, so adjusting, so congratulations. He looks well rested, but it's a facade. Okay, public comments on, or was there anything else for announcements? Hearing none. Public comments on agenda topics, Ms. Judd.
Mine is basically requesting a clarification on the warrants. I noticed that on page 1 that the pickleball court was paid to the all-weather courts of 40,540. And then on page 15, there was a transfer to capital projects for the $40,450. I just don't understand why there's a double accounting of it. I just would like to know a clarification of that.
Sherry, is that just the movement from one fund to the fund that it got dispersed from?
Yeah, it said transfer, so.
That's what it is. So it's in one project fund, but it's paid out of another. So you move it from one fund to the fund that it's actually paid out of, and then it goes out.
Okay, but is the pickleball court, is that sort of the parks? Why does it come out of the capital project?
It's a capital project.
Okay, that clarified that. Thank you.
All right. Can I have a motion to put the consent agenda on the table?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Charo. Discussion or questions regarding the warrants or the minutes from July 23rd? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
No old business. Item 1 under new business is an ordinance approving the purchase of 2 zero-grade turn mowers from Springfield Mowers. A motion to bring that to the table.
Make that motion.
Trustee Miles made a motion. Of a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Mann. Discussion or questions? Hearing none? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
These mowers are industrial grade or,
Yeah, the specs and the bid was attached on there, so what it is.
So do you know, Pat, after this, because this is, I think, the third mower this year, or within this calendar year at least, do we believe the inventory is pretty up to par at this point, or do you expect more purchases for some reason? I'm kind of putting you on the spot there, but.
We do not have in the budget any more purchases this year. One was a replacement for one that is going on the junkyard, and then the other one is a new one, so it adds another more to the fleet. So as we have summer help and also some of the high school kids have been able to stay later and work later, and even after they get out of school can come over and mow for a little bit. So that helps us out by having that mower right there in the park for them to be able to hit that without having to drive it to a separate area where we have to mow all over the place. So.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Charo.
yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Schedule of meetings, Committee of the Whole, 6:15, August 13th. Planning Commission, 6 p.m., August 15th. ADA Transition Plan Committee, 6 p.m., August 20th. Fire and Police Commission, August 21st at 5:30. Village Board meets again August 27th, 6 p.m. Public Properties and Recreation Commission, September 9th at 6 p.m. And the Utility Oversight Committee, 6 p.m., October 14th, 2019. And they have a rescheduled one?
That was the old date. That one is still good, but there is a rescheduled one it's the Monday before our next board meeting.
Utility.
Yeah,
26.
26th of August.
All right. Nobody else had signed up for public comments on general village business. Is there any other public comment at this point? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Detmers made a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Mann. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.
That's us a day.
Now we'll sit here for 7 minutes. You don't have to hang around anymore. Told you I'd have you out by 7. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you guys very much.
Appreciate it.
Sir? Good to see you.
Hi.
Greg, you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you later, sir.
Leave that.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Jamie.
Okay.
Hi.
The Olsen's son, Superman.
Michael's like, I don't know who that is.
Laptop, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm trying it out. Not sure if it'll work or not.
Yeah, so let me see if it's in.
Want to figure out how to take notes better than
You got jealous the time I showed up with my
You
tablet
did.
with the budget.
I
on it.
paid attention.
It's good that you keep learning,
So
Devin.
you can see it. Go
Do
back.
you use like the notes program on there or?
I'm getting
shows
used
up
to
on
it.
mine.
I've never used it because I've just been rocking the phone.
Oh, yeah,
for
you
so
can read it
long,
all.
but yeah, I think it's been helpful so far. I also have something called a rocket, which is like a separate notebook.
Is there anyone musically inclined? Because
No, that's what makes it so entertaining.
It categorizes it based on.
well,
I can,
DJs
I'm
can't.
a heck of a hype.
Doesn't mean he can
I can't
sing.
really
No, he can hit a button and choose songs.
I can,
That's right, we can
You
see.
start rapping, I'll hype you.
Oh, sure, so you got a turntable?
And a microphone, 2 turntables. What's that?
Oh my gosh.
So what
And
is,
some on-air DJs, they'll point out they're not DJs, they're on-air personalities.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's
They
the
don't
difference.
push the button to turn the music on.
They provide commentary and
Yeah.
Personality.
So what is your song of choice, Pat? What is your song of choice?
Music before you go into the event, you just press.
Well, sing away.
Yeah, but then everybody starts coming up.
Yeah,
do you have the hat and glasses?
you never do it.
Well, you know, the Oz brothers used to do that, used to do rock, it's called, they got a group.
And
Yeah. Mike, Phil, and Ron.
they get just get paid so much, like Paris Hilton or whatever.
One of
get paid
our
so much money to go to
organizations in our
DJs.
system is having a concert in October.
Sirius XM.
One of our fellow fundraisers in the system is having a fundraiser in October, and one of the performers is a blues brother, one of the original blues brother band.
Really?
There's one of the guys is
You have a
from
pretty
Litchfield, and just so knows all these people in the industry, so he's putting together this group that's a blues brother band member. There's someone from
Chicken dance, the twist.
really old school name,
The train song.
Frankie
I told
Valli.
him not to expect much. I'm like, I'm barely a freshman in high school.
Yeah, so you're
Frank Vallis sings.
photographer.
Frankie Valli, you mean? Frankie Valli, you mean?
I was back before.
Well, he said Frank Valli, and I'm like, well, Frank Valli's Valli Awards. No, it's Frankie Valli.
Got a pain trying to get her best
It's Frankie Valli.
in the cassette.
We're pointed out.
Yeah, they'll say, well,
That's what they were doing. A cassette tape.
Hold on.
It used to stop though.
We'll get corrected live.
There was that space.
I need to go to another meeting.
You still had to
I gotta change the meetings
They
for
started to get high tech.
Yeah.
Search feature.
There's like a search feature.
Oh, really? It would just forward to the next song, that kind of thing.
All you, Joe.
Yeah, it would stop.
is he actually?
Yeah, the other meeting's done.
Did you hear the Brooks well?
Oh, just somebody,
On his
well, that's the movie, The Jersey Boys.
We have a lot to cover.
I don't know if weeks, maybe days. I went to the doctor today and he's like, it could just be any day now.
I was about to
run
check.
because I haven't seen it going out.
I run around PowerWorks. Yeah, I stay close to the.
Stay close to the ambulance.
Yes. Our neighborhood though.
I think it's gonna be tonight. Yeah, I was gonna text your husband, say, get up here now.
I don't think we'll run though anymore, Dave. It's just kind of like a slow movement.
Let's text Matt right now. This is called, Amy just went down.
He won't be shocked. He's like,
Aim for August 25th, that's a good
I
day.
hope I can make it that
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
Is that your birthday?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Okay, bye guys. I gotta get my kindergartner ready.
I'm considering it.
Good luck.
What about Mondays in the
That's still
fall?
the best
Or
birthday
Mondays
right
a decent night?
Hey, how's it going?
Yes.
All right,
Joseph? I think Mondays are the best night for that.
Or should I say deputy clerk?
It's, James passed it along. Did you know you
Well,
guys?
that was Amy's, but Amy said she had enough.
I almost sent out a
Passed
message
it
last
She
week.
said she's gonna have a
To see
third
if
soon,
who all was
or a
interested.
fourth with her pregnancy.
Yeah, we're gonna shrink the group, I think, because I
Everybody
invited
should
a
have.
couple guys, and then they started inviting
hospital
guys, which
cup?
I
Those are
don't like.
Yeah, I know,
I want to make sure I know.
They're huge.
So
I know.
we'll cut
They give you the ice
cut the
chips in
group
those?
back.
I know people.
Oh, do you?
We didn't have any problem.
Do they say pray hard on them?
But I just
I've got
didn't
different
like
ones.
that.
No, those
They-
don't. That's
you
the
know.
children's hospital.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, no, hers wouldn't show that, but yours would. I thought you worked for the Prairie Heart Institute.
I do. Very. Not. If you're going to have a kid, that's not
But
fair.
I know, but you guys give away cups too. If you have a heart attack, you get a free cup, right?
No.
Heart attack.
No. You get a bear. You get a
Oh, that, you get the cheese.
You have a bear to
Like, I got an hour.
That's right.
You get a punch card.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
You get a
Free cheeseburger. You get a punch card.
See if I like it.
I went
Thank you,
there
Joe.
Saturday at the courts in Chatham. And there were
Matt's got a free punch card.
20.
His is almost filled up.
Yeah, and so
No.
it was filled up.
7 courts and 28 people playing.
Nice. So people do like it.
I was like,
Do we have any reason for a closed session?
A lot more people were there at the tennis court.
yeah.
Crazy. They drove through there at 7:30 in the morning.
What do you say?
Unless we mess
Do we
up.
have any?
I went Saturday, there were 28.
No, not unless we were.
When I finished up with Roland.
They get notice of a lawsuit.
Yeah, there's some tree trimming.
What did you do, Jeff?
We need to trim some trees on the north end.
I usually like this shirt,
Oh,
Trying to get that. I know that's not mine. Is that
the
yours?
ball shirts.
Brett on vacation. Not mine. It's good.
I know I'm not that good, so yeah.
No, it's like
Last hurrah before school starts.
I got Dink Floyd.
Ours doesn't start till
about
Monday.
taking, but like,
Are all the bowling tournaments
Yeah.
over for the year,
I thought
Joe?
I sent you guys my picture. Maybe I
Oh,
did.
just starting?
Our calendar year town.
Has he bowled a 300 yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that a long time ago.
Show you my Dink.
They end up 2 days
Yeah, he
later.
did that when he was
3 days
14.
later.
Jealous.
I like
Got a
the
new
way
thing this year where every
I haven't bowled a
Wednesday all the
300.
that's so cool.
schools dismiss an hour earlier than
I haven't either.
they
Bad.
built.
Well, I
My son has.
Really?
that on the dark side of the court?
He did that when he was 14.
That's amazing, especially for parents at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a switch for a while.
That does look like.
I think people will adapt to it, but
No, but that's awfully small. I'd like to write big and bold.
3 of the half days.
see this.
8 days
Not
that they
unlike
have.
yourself.
No.
All right, we're ready. You need a motion to have somebody
Yeah.
run this meeting.
I'll make a motion to appoint trustee Churchill to be the chairman of the committee of the whole meeting.
I second.
Call for a vote. You're going to call for a vote? Chairman Mao, are you going to call for a vote? All in favor?
All in favor of appointing Paul Churchill as chairman of the committee of the whole for this evening's meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. All right. Clerk, roll call.
Taken.
Thank you. Do we have?
There's nobody on the agenda list.
Okay.
No one for the agenda topics today? So do I have a motion for our consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Mao has made a motion, seconded by trustee Detmers. Does anyone have any discussion or anything on the consent agenda? Mr. Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes. No old business, new business, CMT engineering updates. So Jim back there.
Good evening. A couple of follow-up items from last meeting. I believe you got the roadway writing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of MFT, looking forward to next year with the new state funding taxes, I suppose, for gas, we'll have approximately double the amount next year. So is when we're looking at improvements, no, less?
Less.
A little bit less,
47% more.
47%?
More.
Okay. Which is a considerable amount more to be able to fix our roadways. So looking forward to next year. If there's things that you're seeing as a group, that we need to address, please let me know, and Pat, and we can get that incorporated into next year's program. This year's street crew finished up with the oil and chip program of this year, and then also moving on to patching along Ptarmigan. Talked with Barry Dees, street superintendent, this morning. So they're about halfway through Ptarmigan, and we'll continue to work on that as the summer progresses, picking up other maintenance activities. Another item that we worked on was letter of credit for North Point Common subdivision. So looking at cashing in that, worked with Pat and Sorling, moving forward and hitting up the developer and banking institutes to see what room or latitude that we have in terms of recapturing some of the missing sidewalk or defective areas within those subdivisions. Kind of test our luck on that one, and then move on to other areas within the village and try to recapture some of those funds that are sitting there. that have gone idle either through, default developers or just work never being completed to the extent of the letter of credit. Let's see, working with Pat, also looking at Walnut Street improvements. Last year we received some funding through SATS in terms of initiating a phase 1 engineering study on that, looking at working with Pat on that in terms of coming up with a statement of qualifications. What that has to entail is that project has to go out to it's not a bid process, but selection based on qualifications process because of state federal funding associated with that. So we've explored how the city of Springfield has done that in the past for kind of an efficient process and moving forward, but the opportunity to look at that here moving forward and looking at different applicants for that project. Let's see, other issue that we've been working on with all the rain recently, there's been kind of a heightened flood complaints associated with Carroll's Point behind there with the park property. Two separate issues associated with that. One is an individual property owner just off the corner of Carroll's Point and Ptarmigan, and he's experiencing more localized flooding issues due to its pine needles, debris capturing, and then there's no overflow route if that backs up. So there is an inlet in the commons area behind his property. Once again, worked with Barry this morning and Ryan Crawford, looked at some possible solutions on that in terms of providing an overflow path for it. Discussed, possible removal of trees. He's not in favor of removing the trees, but wants to have kind of an alternate route for the water to go because the next lowest point is his basement window well. So if that backs up, plugs up, he wants to make sure that there's another way that the water can go. There's an inlet that was constructed probably about 1.5 feet too high that actually sticks up out of the ground. So the only water that gets in that inlet is what rains directly on that inlet. So street crew is going to lower that and improve the drainage in that area. Now, a few properties to the east of that behind there, there's kind of a low sump area which picks up drainage and runs that south through that subdivision. That area in the past couple of large rainfalls has experienced flooding that has kind of inundated, probably close to 10 acres of property back there and forms almost a lake that gets very close to the one of the neighbors' pools, within like a foot of the pool or breaching into his pool. So Barry's working with the township in terms of equipment available to be able to do that work with village crews and do that efficiently in-house. And we're looking at a couple of different alternatives. One is to bypass the water along the north side of the park property. And then the other is looking at collecting it at the source that it currently gathers and then providing an overflow route from there. So surveys were taken today. We'll look at that, develop a couple of options, look at the extent of the work and make a recommendation moving forward on that so we can complete those improvements this fall. So other than that, everything else has been kind of on the quiet side. So
Did put in for a grant for getting some of the flooding that happens behind our electric shop and water shop that runs into Parkview subdivision and then runs into the park. So trying to capture some funds to be able to create a pond out there to be able to capture all that water and hold it back and then release it at a slower rate than it just rampaging into Parkview Estates and into the park.
So working with NRCS on that, the initial grant application on that was the project was too large of a project for them to be able to handle that. It would basically exhaust their entire year's worth of funding on a singular project. They like to spread that around a little bit more, but NRCS did identify some more urban stormwater projects or grants that would be available next spring to pursue with the village in this particular project. So they encouraged us to follow up on that and reapply in that application. So
Did you say CS?
NRCS.
NRCS.
So other than that, just kind of moving along, pretty quiet. not a lot of development or review plans currently happening right now, but we'll see if that picks up. So.
I just have one question, Pat. I seem to have a lot of friends with road issues in Chatham, and they always come to me and ask that they be put at the top of the list or however that works. But could you clarify just for the public how you might submit a concern of your roadway? Like, what's the best, to call the utility office or to call you or to submit an email or send a message on the app? What's the best way to kind of be identified?
Putting it on the app creates a work order that gets it in the system. A person could do that from their living room on an app on their phone, the Chatham 311. It would be no different than if they called into the office. So being able to use the app or logging in on the computer to do that is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think Barry kind of looks at the major roadways first, and then after that, we still go through almost the whole town with hot mix and try to fill in the potholes here and there. But
I had a couple in Oak Brook this week that just mentioned, hey, the street. I suggested they reach out, but I wasn't sure the best method for it.
we have a lot more problems than we can get to right now.
Sure.
And an additional 47% next year will help a lot, but it's not going to solve all the problems. Instead of taking 100 years to get all of our streets perfect, now we can get them done in 63 years. So,
Those are Pat's numbers.
Yeah.
That's not exaggerated or
It might be.
It's close.
But that's one way to get it into the system and stuff. And if there's like a bad pothole or something like that, definitely put that in. But if your whole street needs to be redone, you can put it in, but
Chances are,
You already knew about it.
knows.
Right, and I did reference that guide that was provided, but just wasn't sure because Sequoia has been this way since I moved in 45 years ago or whatever. So I just wanted to at least make sure that they were getting into the proper queue or notified accordingly. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is discussion and direction on ordinance increasing various village fees. Pat, do you want to give us?
yeah, over the year or 2 years, we have fees that get raised by our vendors, and we try to get around to them on a regular basis. So what we do is right after the budget gets passed, we try to. Sherry has been great at keeping track of them all. Everybody, when they run into one, they send it to her. She adds it to the list, and then we work on putting an ordinance together, asking for increases in certain areas. So if you look at the ordinance, can you widen that out, Joe?
We
Zoom out.
See the plan?
yeah.
One more. Okay. So what we're going to look at is, first off, the service charges for meter testing. For water meter testing, we had it as a cost of 20. I think the thing's gone to 30 now. But we're asking that the ordinance be changed to the actual cost charged to the village by the testing organization, so we don't have to come back and ask you guys to do this every year or every 2 years. Number two is there's no change on number two. That one, the cost is the same for our guys to test an electric meter in place.
Pat, has it been that cost for a while?
It has.
Electric. So there's no reason to use a similar language for that one at this point?
By our employees.
Since we do it ourselves, we don't have a price go up from the vendors. So if we raise that price, we'd be raising it ourselves.
Okay.
It's not a long process to test an electric meter, so I think that's a fair price for right now. A-2, our grave digger that we've had for many, many years has raised his fee from $500 to $650, and that includes weekends and holidays. He's very, very reliable, does a very good job for us. We never have to worry about him missing. If he can't make it, he has somebody there to replace and takes care of it. Eric looked, it's a fair price for what they charge in other communities and stuff like that. Sure, you're gonna find a few little small rural cemeteries where a few people will go out and dig them by hand and stuff like that, but this gentleman does a good job, so we're asking that that price be changed from 500 to 650. Let's see. The recycling bins, the ones that the village hands out, we would like to change that to really cost-based also. When we buy those, we'll buy them by a pallet load. We might get them at that time at $20, and then by the time we get through those, the next time we have to order some, they've gone up to $40 for those. So we can either change it to that it's straight the cost of what the manufacturer charges, or we can leave it in there based on the village manager, because I had a little bit of a problem with if we bought them at 20 and then the price goes up to 30, do we automatically change them to 30 while we bought a whole bunch of them at 20? I would just soon, when we run out, then tell the girls that, okay, we run out, you've bought new ones, now charge what the cost is when you purchase these new ones. So that's why that verbiage is in there that way. The fingerprinting fee is the same thing when we have to get fingerprinted for employees here as well as for liquor license and stuff like that. We want to be able to charge the fee that the fingerprinting company has.
Hey, skip the park fees.
Oh, the park fees. Oh, shoot, that's not attached. It was attached as one of the ordinances on there.
It's not here.
It's not there? Well, we're not going to pass this tonight anyway, but I would like for you guys, I'll put it on there tomorrow. It's a list of how much we want to charge for renting the park locations. We give first preference to the Chatham baseball, CCFL, the soccer leagues, pickleball group. They've all been vested in getting those facilities to where they're at. So they come in and they pick which nights, days, whatever they need. And we'll put that into our new scheduling system that we've got. After that, those diamonds are available for anybody to use. Somebody wants to come in and use one of the ball diamonds and they're willing to pay, whether it's $25, $50, $100, pay for the lights. They can pay those fees, and then it's guaranteed for them to use them for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever they reserve it for. We've been, the price that we've put on those have been really, really low in the past. So we wanted to turn around and make it so that at least somebody would call and reserve it. And you don't have to. You could turn around and just go out, and if there's a ball diamond there and there's nobody on it, you can go and play ball on it. But if somebody shows up and says that we have this reserved at 6 o'clock, they have to get off. And the police, we tell people that if there's somebody on a diamond or somebody on a field and they refuse to leave, call the police, because they'll look it up in our system and see, yeah, this person here has the thing reserved at 6 o'clock.
Now, I know, and I've never reserved a park, so this is just a question I have, but I know Springfield and other areas actually have a box or a square that says reserved from 3 to 5. Do we have that, or will we have?
We have that.
Reservations
That will
there
be
at the
online.
park?
It will be online.
So if I go to the ballpark, it won't be right there showing it's reserved?
No. Because for one, it's taking the time to go out there and stick that up there, and it's just as easy for somebody to just go up there and pull it off and throw it away and say, no, I'm out here playing. So it's in the system. It's worked in the past that if somebody has it reserved, they call the police come out there and say, yep, you got to leave, you know.
And Pat, can you go back with the other groups that, can reserve those fields or anything before? What's to prevent, can you just remind the group what's to prevent them just scheduling an excessive amount of time?
Well, Dustin said he was going to stay on top of that and make sure that, they didn't reserve every diamond every single night from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. If those diamonds aren't being used and someone wants to run you know, a traveling team or something like that, and they want to try to reserve the park and have like a league, you know, where they host some games there, and Friday nights are available, we'll rent them to them on Friday nights and let them use those. So we've asked the outside groups in good faith to give us a schedule, and we'll make sure that if they schedule it, it's theirs. But don't schedule everything.
Right, and they're using it during the times that they've requested.
Exactly. I think that's it. So I'll have that attached on board docs. And if you guys are okay with the other verbiage that's in this, I think that takes care of this, and we'll have it on the agenda in 2 weeks for passage, okay?
The only thought I had on the other fees is that, you know, if I wanted my electric meter tested, it would be nice to be able to understand what my cost would likely be. You know, so I'm sure that the utility office would still share that, right? Like, oh yeah, I know we've changed the ordinance to be equal to what the vendor charges us, but over the last 3 weeks, it's been $30, that kind of thing, right? They should be able to know what they're getting into.
For the electric meter,
or any,
it would be 35.
Right, I understand.
For the water
As an
meter,
example.
if they call and say, I would like to have my meter tested, the girls would tell them that that's a $40 fee or a $30 fee or a $25 fee.
Gotcha.
And then you have to pay that ahead of time before we come out and do it, so.
Okay. Just making sure that the consumer or citizen would know what they're likely to be charged.
There's no plans to ambush them.
So, and they would have to pay that anyway before that'd be done, so they would know that.
But truthfully, you're wasting your money if you test your water meter. Water meters cannot run fast, they can only run slow. So if you have a water meter and you have it tested and find out it's slow, we might put a new water meter in there, it'll run faster, and then you'll end up getting charged more water. So if you have your water meter tested, you're wasting your money.
Anything else on this topic? Any other questions? Okay. Next, the sanitary sewer rate increase.
We got official notice the other day from the Sangamon County Water Reclamation District of a rate increase. And they have projected that out to for 20 years, correct?
No, 10 years.
Or 10 years. So they've put that all together, and I asked Sherry to put together what our rate increase should look like over 3 years, because you can't judge what it's going to be in 10 years. So from currently, the sanitary district for a single residence is $5.66. Flat charge, $3.30 per 1,000 gallons of water. The cost with our numbers on it is $11.13 and $4.52. But what we're doing is there's an increase of 43 cents for the fixed fee and 19 cents for times 1,000 gallons in year one, in year 2020. And then 2021, it goes up 16 cents and 19 cents. And then year 2022, it goes up 16 cents and 19 cents. And we're going to prepare an ordinance for that also in 2 weeks. Now, that works out. The only thing that we'll end up losing a little money on is by the time that we get this put in place, we'll have had to pay the sanitary district. So to be able to make up for that, we would have to charge 34 cents a month for extra in that area to bring in an extra $12,000 to make up the difference. But our sewer fund is in good enough shape that I think we can eat those costs in that first 6 months before we can get the notice to them that the rates have got to go up. So all we're asking is to actually just pass on what the reclamation district has sent to us. And like I said, in the first year, it would be 43 cents fixed, 19 cents times how many thousands of gallons did you use? Second year, 16 cents for added on to the fixed, 19 cents more for 1,000 gallons. And then in the third year, 16 cents and 19 cents per thousand.
Average water per user, can you remind me, how many thousands of gallons per home?
Yeah, times 1,000.
Do you have an estimate as the number of gallons? I forget what our average user rate was,
We have one,
or an excessive user. I calculated my own.
We use around 5.
probably 5,000 to 6,000 gallons. Average family, maybe.
So you got $1 increase on the per gallon charge and 43 cents on the fixed rate. So the average user's in it for $1.43 per month for year one, and then year 2 and 3 would be lower than that.
It's another one of those ones where our supplier or vendor or partner has raised their rates. We're not asking to raise any of our internal rates. We're just asking to pass on what they passed to us.
Now, the question or concern I have is the part about us eating the cost for the first 6 months. And it concerns me because we've done that in the past with other things, eating those raises. Now, do you foresee, and I know you don't have a crystal ball in your pocket, but is there any projects or anything from the sewer fund that we would need to?
No, we've looked at our sanitary sewers, and our system is in pretty good shape. I think if new subdivisions came in, we would definitely have to look to see and make them connect into trunk lines instead of adding on to certain subdivisions. That the capacity in that subdivision is probably maxed out, and you would have to turn around and run something to be able to bring it and connect to a trunk line. But there are areas in Chatham where if growth happens in those areas, we'll have to look at putting in pump stations, because the gravity flow as we move farther and farther to the south and to the west it's just not there. The depth of where, if you were trying to put a sewer line in, they would have to pump the sewage up to get into the gravity flow. Actually, the Hindu temple, they will have to have, if they put a basement in. No, I think if they have even just their regular new building, because it's back far enough away that when they put their sewer system in there, they'll have to have their own little pump station and pump all the sewage up to get it into our gravity flow sewers and stuff. So
How much are we eating? So if that was,
in this case, just
12,000, right?
Yeah. It's down at the very note at the bottom. Right there.
all right, thanks. Anything else?
That just matches our notice requirements that we have.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Next is discussion and direction on a turnkey maintenance agreement with Key Equipment for a street sweeper. And we have 3 gentlemen from Key Equipment here this evening, so if you want any questions or have any questions on the street sweeper, I'll give you a little background. Our previous street sweeper was a 2012 Isuzu. We paid $133,200 for it.
And when was that?
That was a 2012 that I think we purchased in 2013, I think Sherry said. So what we have here is, if you take a look at the street sweeper summary. Roll that up. That's all the stuff that's on it. Here we go. Okay. So there's the pricing on it. It's a 2019 Elgin Pelican, and it totals out at $220,497.25. We originally talked about doing this as a 4-year lease with the option of giving it back to them then and then getting the new. Okay. So if we do something like that, we need to do the 4-year maintenance plan. So that adds 12,000 to it. They said they would give us $45,000 for our old street sweeper, which would put the price at $187,497.25.
What's the maintenance plan cover? Everything?
It covers greasing, oil changes, tune-ups, anything like that, adjustments of belts, and the things that it are not included are tires and the actual brushes. And the difference between our existing one and the new one is the new one has brushes and it sweeps stuff into the middle and sweeps it up and puts it in, where our old one was a vac type. And it really had trouble with anything that was the least bit heavy or wet. Leaves wanted to stay stuck down to the street, stuff like that. So
If this thing could heavy handle and wet, or heavy and wet,
Absolutely. Brad Franklin here from Key Equipment. Yeah, that's what it's designed to do. I mean, Springfield, all your bigger cities, if they have multiple units, most of them have a Pelican. We equate it kind of like your broom and your shovel. It's gonna get it, pick it up and load it and put it into a dump truck. So that's kind of the design. It'll, anything smaller than a football and less than about, 50 inches long is gonna go in there. So mufflers, caps, it doesn't really make any difference. So that's,
small dogs.
I did read, as you suggested, Pat, that it doesn't cover tires, which we know the cost of those, but the brush, I have no idea like how often the brushes need to be replaced, or what percentage of the overall maintenance cost is the brush. But I was kind of curious about that, if anybody knows.
brushes are what, usually 400 to 600 hours, give or take, is kind of the rule of thumb. A lot of it depends on if they're doing, cleaning up the chips after, the loose chips. And it depends on the down pressure. Obviously, the more you push down, the more you're going to wear. So it's application and obviously the operator, but average, life 400 to 600 hours. So you're probably going to go through maybe 2 sets of brooms if you do an 800-hour year.
Annual year.
Yeah, that would be that's a good guess. Without the first year, you're probably going to use it more because obviously you need to catch up with some of the, the debris that's not being picked up at the moment. So you're going to have a little heavier workload, and then you should get back to normal after that, I would think. So,
How many brushes are there? Like, are there underneath?
This particular one will be 2 gutter brooms, so about 80% of your materials within 18 inches of your curb line, because everything kind of, crown pushes it that way. So there's a gutter broom on that side, and then we have one on the other side, and that's just to get a wider sweep pattern. Or if you have a one-way street, you obviously want to not be going the wrong way down the street when you're sweeping. So the right one's going to get more use than the left one, obviously, and then your main broom pretty much, is going to be on all the time. So, so 3 different brooms.
Okay.
Your right curb broom's going to be the most used, and then obviously your main broom's going to, load the material up into the machine.
So is there a cost to get that? So there's the cost of the actual brush, but then a cost to get that changed?
the labor cost?
The labor cost?
Well, if we brought it in for service under that agreement and we replaced the brushes at the time, would there be an additional charge other than we pay for the brooms, but you guys would put them all on?
Yeah, we'll put them. And honestly, the brooms, there's 2 bolts per segment. It takes you 10 minutes to put them on. I mean, it's not a very involved process. A set of gutter brooms, ballpark, I think they're $80 a section, or $80 a month, or somewhere around that. $80.
Normally you go through 4, you'll wear the side one out 4 times before you do the main one. It is rule of thumb. So yeah, like you said, 80%, even though the big broom's going the whole time, it wears a lot less than the side gutter broom that's sweeping up in the curb.
So give or take, you're gonna be a few $100s in brooms, in a normal season. Plus, if you end up with a main broom, so not thousands. So that's a good ballpark.
Now, do you guys come and pick that sweeper up here and bring it into your place, or do we deliver that, or?
We come.
Okay.
So not truck mounted. So it's a 20 mile an hour sweeper. So obviously we don't you've got a traveling mechanic that comes to you. So as long as, you know, we can give them a little garage space to work in, we're gonna bring all the stuff here, we're gonna service it. If we have to do something that's not gonna be done here, we're, as part of our maintenance agreement, we're gonna cover the cost of loading it up and taking it to our place or wherever we need to go. So, but everything should be done here, essentially. That's the plan.
So Pat, was your suggestion to buy it outright, or were you wishing to discuss that?
That was the part that I wanted some input on from you guys, what you thought. You know, if, the way I look at it is, we need the maintenance agreement no matter which plan we use, okay? So if you're taking 12, just remove that from the equation, you take 12,000 off of the 187,497, then what we're talking, 175. Okay, if at the end of 4 years with the buyback agreement, if we do the maintenance and we don't tear it up, they will give us $100,000 for that unit after 4 years. So in that case, we're spending $75,000 over a 4-year period. Or do we buy it for 187 or the 175, not counting the maintenance, because we're going to do that on either way, whether we're renting it or whether we're buying it. And then take our chances that the thing lasts longer than 4 years.
That was my question, is how long does one last?
Well, assuming 6 years, right? We bought one in 2013 and we need another one. So that's the.
How long's the Pelican?
Well, wait, that could be a crappier model.
Yeah, that's the average life cycle of a Pelican, I mean, there's some out there that are 15, 20 years, but if you want to keep ahead of the maintenance, and obviously, you know, there's that trade-in where it drops off. I mean, 8 years is kind of, is that range. That's why you kind of do the 4. And this is a little bit bigger number annually because we're starting with a $45,000 sweeper. So if you think about that, now you're going to have another, what, 60, whatever it is, 55,000. So you're actually going to have that number considerably less over your 4 years the next, you know, cycle. So that's kind of you got to do catch up a little bit. Air sweepers are quite a bit more maintenance. Plus you've got the chassis and you've got the auxiliary engine. So you got, you know, 2 sets of emissions on the diesels, you know, all these other things. And the Pelican's a single engine, no DEF fluid, much less on the maintenance side of things. So, but average is about 8 years, about what most cities swap out, or they run until they don't run anymore, which may be 12 or 15 years, 20 years. Depends on your duty cycle again, how many hours you go fill.
So kind of in that formula, if you take out the 100,000
right
that they would give us back, that's 75,000 for 4 years. For 150,000, then you could have it for 8 years. Or no, wait a minute, that's bad math. That's half that. It's 35,000 essentially then what you're paying over an 8-year period.
And did I read that you could decide, like again, if our initial agreement is to buy it, there's that lease back or buyback agreement. I think it said you had to have your decision made within 6 months of the term ending. Did I read that right? So we don't necessarily have to decide the 100,000, you know, sell that today or next meeting necessarily. We can wait several years to make that decision, right?
The 6 months is essentially just make sure we have enough time
To sell it or to
build one.
To build the new one
You know,
for
because
us.
if you say the day before we want it, I'm like, wait a minute, it's going to take me 60 or 75, 90 days to build it. So
Okay.
that kind of gives us time to make sure we've got something ready, so you're not without a sweeper essentially. Gotcha. It's kind of the thought.
And they offered a page on your administrative part on the leasing rate, which is, you know, it's a little bit higher than what we've received on some of the lease loans that we have here in Chatham, but it's kind of in the ballpark. But the payments would be right under $25,000, somewhere between 24 and, you know, and 25. So.
Per year.
Yeah. So we'd be paying that for 4 years.
Sounds
Your
like
thoughts
that's
one way or another?
But if we turn around and bought the thing and kept it for 8 years and got our own financing, then you're probably cutting your payments in half then. If you financed it for the whole 8. Or if you picked a 5 or a 6 or something like that.
Trustee Charo, did you have a question?
Well, I was thinking about the protections involved with leasing. I need to think about this. I'll read through it. I don't think I necessarily have.
We don't have to make any decisions today. I wanted to put this out in front of you. We talked about the street sweeper back when we were doing the green program and the budget. It was in both of them. We're to that point that if the leaves start falling in a few months, we'd like to have the thing here and be able to start using it.
Is there any recommendation from staff?
Recommendation from staff right now is to let us purchase it, and whether we finance it or whether we keep it for 4 years or 8 years and stuff. I think we can determine that after we see wear and tear on it and the time that we put on it and stuff like that.
The only, and I'll say this, a lot of people have approached me about the street sweeper. Number one, they say, well, we didn't even know we had one. And so I guess, and maybe we haven't used the one we have now because, I don't know, there's issues with it, but just more use out of it than we've had in the past. Because a lot of people don't see it go by their house or don't even see it go through town. And that's one issue that people have addressed.
And the thing that I explained to Shane and to Barry is that I expect an employee to be in our street sweeper and run it from one end of town to the other, and then when they get done, go back to the other end of the town and start all over again. As long as they keep our streets clean and the wet leaves and the stuff picked up, then water doesn't pool there and it doesn't make the asphalt start falling apart. But if you look on a lot of our streets that are tree lined, there are so many leaves in the fall and they're just soaked and you can't get them up. The one that vacuumed would not pull them up. We'd have to take the inloader out there and scrape them and try to get them up off the street. If we take care of it on a regular basis and we know which streets need to be hit more often, and that was part of my plan too, was that the person that would be driving this would also be using CM&T's pavement rating system to be able to take a look at it and say, okay, well, this street was considered a B a year ago. All right, I know what this looks like. When I come back three months later and I go down it, now it's all broke up in a bunch of pieces. I need to point out that this B just went to a D, So
I just want to say that's a good idea. I like that you came up with that because instead of that being a static thing that was come up a few years ago that's no longer useful, it continues to be useful and allows you to be proactive. So.
And that person is going to see all the streets during a week or 2 weeks as they go through town. They will know where the bad potholes are at, where they need to go back and patch. Sometimes my street crews don't hit every single street in a week or 2 weeks and stuff like that. So this way, somebody is putting eyes on them all the time.
And all the street crew will be trained on this piece of equipment?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know in the past we've had some equipment that not everybody knows how to use, and so it could be used because that person's out of town. So I just want to make sure that everybody in the street department will know how to use this. So if person X is gone, person Y can get in it and use it.
That's the plan.
And I do think we're limited to 1,000 hours per year. So that's about half of someone's time, normal working hours, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to have it running every day, but it is good to have multiple people.
But once we find out how long it takes to go through, we'll know then, okay, it took us so many hours to get through the town.
Okay.
So,
anything else on the street sweeper?
Well, again, you said it's limited to 1,000 hours, right?
Per year.
Is there a reason it's limited to that? Is it because of it would require more maintenance after 1,000 hours, or what's the limit due to?
Typical cities of this size are probably lucky to get, 600 to 700 hours. 800 is kind of that where you're using them a lot. I mean, you're getting out there. You got to think about it. I mean, you come in, you water up, you get out there. I mean, you're not necessarily having the engine run the entire time. So you get over 1,000. So what we like to look at is, say the life of a sweeper, it's not years as much as it is hours. So 10,000 hours, you're getting to a point where we're probably not gonna rebuild that one, it's probably gonna go out in the back lot for parts. Because if you look at that, you know, for instance, a different field, like a garbage truck, for instance, they use hours equate to 30 miles. So 10,000 hours is, you know, 300,000 miles, so that thing's, it's pretty tired at that point. So the 1,000 hours is kind of looking at what the average city hours is, and then thinking, okay, that's, if we don't go over 4,000 hours, we're not quite half life cycle of that sweeper for the secondary, you know, for the next customer. So that's kind of that's how the buyback is what it is. If we get unlimited hours and you turn it in with 6,000 hours, then, you know, now what's it worth? I mean, that's kind of the matrix is, you know, average hours, 600 to 800 is probably, I mean, you're using a bunch if you're into that many hours in a season. So that was kind of the matrix.
We'll know more about the hours after we get it running anyway, right? And what it actually takes for our village. Just once we get it, I just want to keep it going and make sure that it's working.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
talked about that with the additional staff member in the streets department. Already planning for that.
So if you guys could give me an indication that it's okay to put this on the agenda for you guys to review in 2 weeks?
I would like
Get to that
to
point yet?
see a lease agreement breakdown similar to what we have on this purchase.
Okay.
Okay. So we're comparing apples to apples. I mean, I can roughly do the math, and looks like the straight out would be the most cost efficient way to do it. But I'd like to see a lease agreement.
You mean are you saying to buy it outright and keep it for the life?
Yeah, just
or to
so like what we-
intend to resell it after 4?
Well, what we've got in front of us is both of what you just said. We're buying it outright, and yes, we would have the ability to turn it in after 4. But what does a lease agreement look like? You know, if we're just straight leasing it.
That's pretty much it. You're essentially paying for the whole amount. You're getting a loan for the whole amount, okay? And you're paying the interest on that. And then if we meet the requirements of getting it maintained and keeping it under the mile or the hours goal, then they will pay, if we go back to them to get another Pelican, they will give us $100,000 credit for the one that we're giving back.
kind of an incentive in the leasing.
Is that correct?
If I could add one thing, so typically the way that I've seen the leasing program done is you basically have a limit. At the end of your 4 years, you have $100,000 payment that's due. So either you turn it back, you know, we're going to write you a check for $100,000, or you're going to, you know, assume that $100,000, you know, payout or at the end of the thing. So you're financing your amount plus $100,000 essentially is how that.
Oh, okay.
Is
All
how
right.
it works.
All right, so we cut you a check for 100,000, or we turn the machine back in.
That's it. So you're not totally financing that amount. You're financing less the buyback, and then that's your balloon payment at the end. Because otherwise, you'd be paying interest and making these big payments. And then you have the option if you want to keep the sweeper, then you know you're welcome to keep it. You're not tied into anything. It's just an option. If you want to exercise that, then you just need to let us know so we have adequate time to build one. And it's not predicated on a new machine either. So if you decide you want to turn it in, you're going to go a different direction. It's the same thing. We're not tying it to a new purchase of any sort. It's just that particular machine is the buyback. So that's, any other questions, or did I confuse you?
Trustee Mann?
No, I think I got it. Okay.
All right. Trustee Charo, ready for it to be on the next? I'll just go around.
Yes.
Yep. That merges. Yep. Thank you.
All right,
Yes.
put some together and we'll get the lease agreements to Jeff to take a look at. But I'll also have Sherry take a look at putting together our own lease agreement with one of the local banks and stuff, if you want her to put that out there for,
I'd like to see both.
to see what their quotes are.
Yeah,
And then
I'd
we
like to
can
see both.
have something to compare. All right?
Thanks, Pat. Okay, next on the agenda, discussion direction on the approval of a turnkey maintenance agreement with Altech for a 48-foot digger derrick.
You guys know what a digger derrick is?
I assume it's a digger.
And this
It's
is,
not Derek.
this actually isn't a maintenance agreement. This is just the,
This is just a straight up.
yeah, so that was a carryover from the previous one.
Okay.
So a digger derrick is our, I call it the pole truck, because it goes out, digs the hole for a new pole, and also has the ability to be able to pick up that pole and pick it up and set it down in the hole and set it. Our previous one is a 1999 Freightliner. It's 20 years old. We've had multiple mechanical issues with the turbo and the transmission. The trade value of it is $6,000, so basically it's scrap metal pricing. So I don't think we're going to trade it in. We'll hold on to it and see if we can sell it to somebody we know or something like that.
I gotta see the pricing.
The price is, we had budgeted $292,000 for the digger derrick, and bid came in at $259,751. So it came in quite a bit under what our budgeted price was.
And Pat, you might also want to mention the last item was bid too. Both of these items were bid.
Both of those items were bid, and we only got single bids in each case.
So Freightliner, the one we had before, didn't even bid it again?
There was one company that came in and bid, and they dropped their bid off 4 hours late, and they were still higher. So, but I told Shane, I said, we don't even present those to you because they missed the time frame by 4 hours. So.
Pat, did you say this is an outright purchase? Because in our budget, we only budgeted for a capital lease purchase.
Well, that's what I meant, a capital lease purchase. So what, we would have to get financing for it, put it out for financing and pay for it over years. But
Now, did Altech have a lease program also with their numbers and, or no? Or would we
I
go
don't-
with an outside bank on
I don't know on that. I think we were just going to go out with our, and put it out to the local banks.
Can we see both if they do have that
Yeah, we'll check.
in-house lease rate versus the,
Yeah.
not saying it would be any lower or different.
I think what Shane was looking at with the wear and tear that comes with the street sweeper, we would like to trade that in after 4 years.
Okay.
Where in this case, our last truck lasted 20. He would like this one to be able to last 20 years without having to replace it. So he's not looking to trade it off after a 4-year period. We don't use it every single day, but we need something to replace the one that we have.
So what are the average hours, do you know, Pat, offhand, what we used?
For this one?
Yeah.
I do not know that.
Okay.
If you guys have certain questions on that stuff, if you can shoot them to me, I'll get them to Shane and we can get answers to them. But that stuff I don't know.
Anything else on digger derrick?
So kind of the same thing. We had it in the budget. The thing come in quite a bit under budget. It's what they were looking for. Can we put together something for the next meeting and Sherry can put together and try to see if there's financing out there for it?
2 weeks fast enough for you? 2 weeks enough time for you?
I don't know if that's enough time.
Yeah, and there's nothing saying that it has to happen in 2 weeks, but we have to know whether it's okay to start asking for stuff.
I would like to see the options on it. I mean, I don't have a problem with doing it. There's the debate as to whether or not, the leasing protections that we may have are value enough to go the leasing route or, outright purchase with a maintenance agreement, that kind of thing. So that's my only concern is the balance between, a maintenance agreement from a brand new vehicle versus what other protections you get out of a leasing agreement. And if there aren't any there, then.
Okay.
Just as long as the whole board, and including trustee Gerger, has time to review this, so that you can see that information.
This purchase isn't a rush, so we can take our time on it. But like Sherry said, if we're going to put out for financing, it takes her time to write that up and then put out to see if it's what's available. And she opens the bids to see which one's the low bidder for the financing. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next, discussion direction on changes to liquor code and the background check. Pat, is this you? Or-
Gentlemen?
And Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I looked at it pretty.
I put a packet in front of you. We've adjusted our application for liquor licenses and sales and all that stuff over the years. And Lynn Pace in the utility office has been good enough about trying to keep everything in line and taken care of. And she's come up with a few things that she changed on some of these applications, and you can see those kind of in items 1 through 7 on the front page and the top part of the second page. But when you get to items 1 through 8, these are some things that I found in ordinances that we probably need to vote on to change. And we can go over those line by line, or you guys can take this and look at it and either shoot me an email, or we can talk about it at the next meeting that, you know what, I looked through it, I didn't have any problems with any of that. But
Well, let me first ask the board, do you want to go through this tonight or have time to review this?
I make a recommendation for you. Lynn and Pat and Vern are the ones that deal with this at all points in time. Take the list and review it just to make sure you don't see anything else. And at the same time, let the attorney look for it, because a couple of the comments that she had references something that's been in the application process, but not in here. Have been in the application process, but not necessarily codified. So I would recommend you have Jeff review it as it correlates to the liquor ordinance itself and see if there's any modifications that need to be there. Because most of the comments that she has on there are common sense, and it's just catching an outdated form up to date. So periodic reviews of these find it, and generally the people that are dealing with the applications on a routine basis know it better.
And that really is a good thing for our staff. I said that they buy into their job, so they look for ways to make things run smoother and better. And all the girls in the office do that over there. And Lynn stepped up on this liquor license stuff.
Okay. Jeff, you haven't reviewed this though yet?
Not in detail, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll all review this and we'll get a copy to Trustee Gerger. It's on the online as well.
Yeah, it's all in Word docs.
All right, Pat, you're up again for a final time, I think. Village manager update.
This coming Thursday's Planning Commission, we have a small vacation of a portion of an easement over in North Point where a duplex or condo at the time got built and is just a few feet at the most over on our easement. So when they tried to go in and do a 0 lot line split, the county saw that and alerted me of it. So I asked Jim, I says, what do you want them to follow? And he says, well, they need to file to vacate that portion of the easement. So the Planning Commission meets and gives their blessing on that Thursday. And while we're there, we will be starting the discussions on what zoning classification distilleries, wineries, and microbrews should be in. And then also we need to address whether we're going to move forward with coming up with a zoning for the sale of cannabis, if we're going to allow that in the village of Chatham. So those things will be first kind of just thrown out topics and kind of thrown out some ideas. When we get some stuff a little bit more organized, we will hold a public hearing, because we have to do that for the new zoning changes through the Planning Commission. And then their recommendations will come to the board, and then you guys.
So what are you talking about, the cannabis at the planning?
We're going to also. You know, my first thought is that it follows the same zoning rules as alcohol. Right now it's B2 zoning with the board's approval of special use for that address.
Well, there's two ways, I'll just add at this point too, there's two ways to look at this. It could be how it's zoned or whether or not we allow it. The board has the option to, and some village boards throughout the state have passed ordinances to not have any facilities in their village. So it's something we have the option to look at. Now, we know we're not going to have a recreational marijuana in the first year. All the current medical marijuana facilities will automatically become recreational. And then they're only, over 4 years, they're only going to allow so many licenses. But by the end of that 4 years, it will drastically increase. So there is two ways. So the planning could look at the zoning, but there's a side issue too that the board could look at on what, if we didn't allow it, you wouldn't even need to look at the zoning. So I don't know if that's putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
I think the planning, sorry to interject, I think the planning commission is, it's almost like our committee of the whole in that they're just going to review and discuss and provide a suggestion to the village board, and we could take that suggestion and adopt it or just say, you know, we want to ban it outright or whatever. It's more of like sort of the introductory discussion.
No, I get that, and but it'll be coming from a zoning perspective, and the presumption will be that that will allow it, but how are we going to zone it? So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that there's a separate component that we could have an ordinance where we don't allow a license for a recreational shop in Chatham, because I've been approached by several people about that as well.
So there'd be no reason to discuss it if we didn't have it.
Correct.
The only thing that I wanted to run by them is I wasn't going to ask any of them if they were for it or against it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask them, where do they think the zoning is appropriate for it?
Yeah.
And for them to make a recommendation to the board there.
Yeah.
Then that way it falls on you guys to make the decision on whether you want to keep it or whether you don't. And if you do, well, then now you have a recommendation on what zoning that would go in.
That's it.
I think that's a logical approach.
It's an extended process to go through the zoning.
Yeah.
Do a special use, because you have to have the hearing, you have to have the notices, and the timing that it takes concurrently with that. You can have discussion as your board, you want it, but you have to set them in the motion to be able to meet the deadlines that are in the state law on what you have to have set by the end of this year. So if they're not running concurrently, you're going to.
Yeah. I just want to be clear about that, because I know once people start seeing that this is being talked about as planning, the presumption will be that the village of Chatham is moving forward with this and just looking at where they're going to allow it. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that this is, if in case the village of Chatham did in fact allow it, this is how it would be zoned. We're not saying it will or won't be, but also to also manage expectations. Even if we did allow it, we wouldn't get one for a long time, because the market probably, there's already 2 or 3 in Springfield. They'll be coming, so I don't know. It'll be a long time before this area would get an additional recreational marijuana license anyway.
There's only one.
There's 2. There's one on North Grand and there's one.
Same guy.
No, they're different companies. There's one at North Grand, there's one down by the old state capitol at the Washington.
The Senate room.
Yeah, it's right in there, next to the cigar shop. But yeah, I mean, so I just want to be clear on that, because that's something that's been brought up to me as soon as this was a discussion at the State House. It's been a discussion. I've reached out actually and asking a survey, not scientific, and asking people. So, and it's a mixed bag on where people sit with it. But also, the thing I will point out, if we did allow this, there's no going back. Once you allow the licenses, it's there. We're done with it. If we wanted to wait and see approach, we could always pass an ordinance, say we're not going to allow them, and then later say, you know what, it's all fine. And if someone wanted a license and change that, there's one that you're committed.
That's the beauty of special use. You're going to decide case by case.
Yeah, that was the reason that I thought that one made the most sense, is that sure, first you can put it in the B2, which is a business type zoning, but it's more on the line of where you would have hard liquor sales and stuff like that. But it still falls back to every single time that you allow it, you're allowing that license for And they have to come in and go through the whole process with you and you get to talk to them, find out who they are, whether you want them there or not.
Yeah.
So that, just because it's B2 doesn't mean that they're going to get it. It's B2 special use.
Well,
And that's what I would like to talk to them about. But if you guys don't want me to bring that up to the planning commission this
No, I
time,
want to hear. I want you to bring that up. I would like for you to bring that up.
So I apologize. I didn't spend so much time on this, but I didn't know this was going to be a discussion tonight. And since it is being brought up and it is going to be talked about at the planning meeting, I know I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. So I just want to make sure that it's clear too on some of these options that I may want to bring forward, and look at this further on whether or not we would. And it's no comment on whether or not it's recreational legal or not. It's just whether or not it would be licensed to sell in the village of Chatham, because regardless, it'd still be available to buy in Springfield on January 1 when those facilities turn from medical to recreational. But, and I'll point out now, just since we are talking about it, the people who've come forward to me is, we're a small village of Chatham that, that marketing, signage is, where families grow, and some would look at that and say this is kind of contradictory to that message. So I would just want to point that out, that's, some people's concerns, because you can still buy it somewhere else, but necessarily does it need to be something that we want to allow to be sold here?
Well,
We
my
need to
concern,
explore all options with this. This is something that we will require a lot of conversation and discussion over. And I think we can do it right. If we do this, we want it to be done the right way, obviously.
oh, exactly. And, and Paul, I think you and I have talked about this before when earlier we had we couldn't buy liquor in Chatham until noon on Sundays. Now it's 10 o'clock on Sundays. Before we were losing that business and interest to Springfield, we lowered it to 6 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. And I think, this will be something that'll be discussed too, is how much interest and how much, what am I trying to say? How much will we lose from Springfield 5 miles down the road when we can do the same thing here and not lose it? So that's an interest that I've heard also.
Yeah, the financial component of that is a really good question on, the tax revenue. I don't, I know it's minimal. I don't think anyone quite knows that yet, since this is still, hasn't been put in place formally, but until January 1. But the other side is there's a lot, we don't know what we don't know. So, Colorado's had this legalized for a while. They still don't have a mechanism to test for DUIs, but yet their DUIs have dramatically increased. And on top of that, the issues, and this is beyond our jurisdiction or role, but, if someone is caught with it, say it's an organization, employer has an HR rule against smoking it. They don't have a good way of, if you come in and they tested you, they don't have a good way to tell, because it still tests over a period of time whether or not you just took the substance like you did alcohol or it was 15 days ago. So, we could say it's legal in terms of the state of Illinois, but if the employee counters, if they say, it's legal, I can smoke this on my personal time over the weekend, the employer can countersue and move it to federal court, and you would still be in the wrong because federally it is still illegal. So there's a lot of issues with this that are not resolved with the state doing it yet. And I don't know, it's almost, in one way, we can let everyone else figure it out rather than us to be the guinea pigs, I know, and figuring it out, and let other people figure it out, because there's going to be revenue, but there's also going to be costs associated with how this is going to be trained up. I want to hear from our own village law enforcement officials on their thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And how this is going to go forward.
I'm not saying for Chatham to be the guinea pig. I'm saying for Chatham not to be behind the ball and lose out. So have the discussions, have this stuff done before January 1. Yes. We can say and be on the ball and say, here's why we want to do it, the revenue, each and every reason, and have everything in place to make sure that we do have, that we're going forward in the right direction.
It's a full exploration of this we have required. But the first step is finding out how we're going to zone it.
If we did.
If we, well, yes.
All right.
Do I have a recommendation for the board to
Yes.
approach them on the zoning thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a yes from everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Anything else, Pat?
Question, chloramines. But they're coming soon.
Soon, I have no idea. I really do. I have no idea. We requested it.
Is it still the equipment issue they had last time that has not been resolved yet, or what's the?
The latest thing is the company that sets everything up and helps them with the feed rate and everything else needs to come and teach the two guys in, or the three people that work there, how to make sure the feed rate is right and everything is working properly. I can't argue with that, but I sure wish it could happen.
So who can put the fire under their rear ends to make them do this training that's needed?
I talked to Bill and asked him if he knew anybody at the company that was gonna come out and train him on that, and he said he doesn't. But I thought maybe he could inside try to get somebody there sooner, but I'm sorry, but I don't have an answer. They have, recently got the new train put in, and that's back online and everything. Actually, we were taking 1,000 gallons a minute from them today, which is the highest that I can remember that we've ever been taking water from them. So, but I think they have that done. They got one of the wells back that was out, it's back there in London. So, like I said, they were pushing 1,000 gallons a minute to us today.
Do you know with a lot of the major flooding some areas around here encountered, did any of that affect the well fields or anything out there?
Our well fields, the tops of the wells.
I know they're high, I just didn't know if they, yeah.
So even if the well areas are 10 feet underwater, they're still 15 feet above the top of the water.
So the water plant wasn't affected by the flooding at all? Okay, good.
Any other questions for Pat? All right, thanks, Pat. Next, the Utility Oversight Committee discussion. I know Trustee Gerger's not here. That was rescheduled because of a school conflict, which also impacted me as well, or impacted me in terms of the school conflict. So that has been moved to August 26th, that Monday, and that's the day before the next board meeting. 88 Transition Plan Committee update. Trustee Mann.
Yeah, so we did meet for the first time in, I think, 6 months. We kind of reset the playing field a little bit, kind of level set the expectations for the group. But we still don't have the paperwork that we need from the former chair. And we're still pressuring and trying to get that from him, but that is what it is. And that's really where we're focused right now. Is we need that documentation so we can pick it up and run with it. I think the group feels like once we have all that back together again, we can get this thing wrapped up and solidified very quickly. So.
Thanks. Public Property and Recreation Committee discussion.
The committee didn't meet since our last committee of the whole meeting, but I do want to have a quick discussion about a potential dog park that many groups are trying to coordinate and raise funds for. I think there was some discussion last week last meeting about whether or not we'd be interested in one or we wouldn't. So just wish to open the floor if anybody wants to talk about it, because there are folks out there that are requesting it, and there are folks that are out there raising funds towards it. And if you guys are against it, then we should let them know promptly.
Well, I'll make a few comments. I'm not against the dog park, but as I stated last time, I'm also, and I'm looking at what pickleball has done and other groups, and I want to make sure that these people that are gung-ho and want this dog park have funding mechanisms to upkeep this park down the road in the future, not just create it, but also have funding mechanisms to upkeep it, like pickleball, like football, like Chatham baseball, like Chatham soccer. All these other groups pay money to fund the upkeep of those fields. I just want to make sure the dog people can do the same.
Maintenance. Makes sense.
I think Dewey's question is, if somebody comes up and says, here's all the money to build this, are you going to say no?
Yeah, no.
Or here's half the money, or here's a third of the money, or here's a quarter of the money.
No, me personally, I think it'd be a value add for the community. I really do. It's.
I think Massey and Massey had drawn up some things if you had attended the park comprehensive plan. There's just several different suggested spots. I think there's work being done at Westside Park, and there is a spot on the drawing for a dog park at Westside Park, which is near the bridge area. But again, I think that we owe these citizens that are out there putting substantial work towards raising funds some sort of
I like the idea
commitment.
of a dog park. I mean, I think it brings people out to the park. I think, people like gathering in these public areas with their dogs. It's also becomes a social outlet for them. And I think it'll be maintained, as long as we'll get there after they raise all the funds. I wouldn't object to a dog park.
Are you just asking, in theory, you're either supportive or not? Or are you asking it in terms of budgetary? Is there a limit of what?
I think it'd be irresponsible for me to ask you to vote for it now without having an understanding of the full costs and, what types of projects we'd be looking for. But we just owe it.
I'm very pro dog. So.
I'd like to see what they come up with. And yes.
In a drawing, or what you mean financially? When you say what they come up with, what do you mean? Yeah, I mean, I know that they're putting efforts towards it, but it's hard for them to raise funds when it may not be something that's even very serious. And like, hey, would you give $5,000 towards this thing? What's the likelihood of it happening? I don't know. You've never asked.
I think there would have to be some discussion as
no
well.
thanks.
It's a very relevant question, Joey, from someone from the fundraising field. I mean, you can't go raise funds for something. One, there's a trust factor that, if someone's going to commit, they need to make sure the project's going to go forward. So yeah, I don't know if you have your Massey and Massey comprehensive plan to show that. I don't know with this if there's grants to pursue for the planning part. I know sometimes those are available for that aspect to support the planning. I know that's pretty much done. Or at least to what can be done at this point.
And I think that's part of the grant process is, getting agreement, preliminary agreement from the board, and then also having a conceptual drawing and a plan and an estimated cost and all those things, as you surely know.
As far as the conceptual, idea of it, I like what they've proposed at West Park. I think that's the perfect place. We do have a lot of less used space at West Park, and I think that's a good spot for it. To kind of draw people back in there. It's really kind of gone unused.
Well, if you
since it's a floodplain here.
If you drive by there now, it's a blank palette.
Right.
All of the baseball backstops and fencing has all been removed.
Yeah.
And we plan on cutting a ditch on it would be the south side of the park where the water comes off that hill and then runs across all the fields and stuff and then runs over the creek. The plan is to put a ditch in there and have the water run to the west to catch the creek down there. That keeps the water from moving across there. And then I think we're going to trench in field tiles along there too and get those all the way over to the creek. So water that does come down on there will run over, go into the field tiles and work their way out and into the creek instead of keeping everything soaked out there. So that once we have a nice dry area, then we'll turn around and work with baseball. And if you guys deem that as part of the park comprehensive plan to put ball diamonds back there as well as a dog park, then that's what the plan will end up looking like. And I think that the timing is perfect because The comprehensive plan is probably going to be ready for you guys to take a look at within the next month, month and a half. If you're voting for that, you're voting to look at something and say, you know what, I'm okay with the dog park going here sometime in the future. And hopefully, then that's the thing, Dewey, that your groups that are going out and trying to do fundraising says, look, hey, you know, they've just committed to this because, you know, and then as you get the money and put it together and stuff like that, then you have a project.
So is that enough for it to be in the plan, or do you need a resolution?
I'm unaware of any, you know, technical documents or agreements that we need. I just wanted a verbal commitment, you know, preliminary.
I think if you vote to accept the plan,
Yeah.
That's generally the first thing a lot of the state and federal grants look at is they look at your long-term plan. Is this documented in your long-term plan in some fashion? You've made a commitment that this is a direction you're moving, not whether it's specific to exactly what it's going to look like, where it's going to be, what year you may even do it, if ever, but that's the direction that's laid out there. And as long as your baseline becomes that plan. Once the plan's accepted, it's in there, the concept is in there, then you have to do it that says, okay, look, from at least an organizational perspective and a visioning perspective, they've had this in their vision. And it's not some grant writers are not looking at some fly-by-night kind of idea like, oh, well, let's go after this. And if we get it, we'll do something that's actually part of the long-term planning on it. So
Did we have the dog park question in our village survey?
Yes.
And you remember what the support
I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah. I mean, people want activities. I mean, anything we could do in the parks, I think is just a value added.
And some people
right
don't
now,
have dogs.
right now, I think the step we're on is reclaiming the land, is using over there at West Park. And that's our step.
Yeah,
Right now is reclaim it, make sure it does drain appropriately, and
I think a dog park would be probably the perfect anchor for that location. I really do.
It's also
something you can sink your teeth into.
Yeah, exactly.
so 9 out of 10 dogs voted yes.
So one last thing on the PPRC, just a reminder that there is going to be a Pawsapalooza September 21st at Community Park. Bands, music, food, etc. In an attempt to raise funds for this dog park.
What's the goal? So, I mean,
What is the financial goal, or what is the goal of the event?
yeah, well, it's fundraising, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, what's the financial goal?
I think to raise as much funds possible towards the preliminary estimate of the dog park, you know, what the fencing and stuff would cost. I think we probably have to look at getting water out there and maybe some shield for the sun, that kind of thing. But
I
don't think there's a number necessarily yet. $1 million, $2 million, something like that.
Aim high.
They need spas, fountains. Just kidding.
So they have those.
For $1 million, we'll put trout in that creek out there.
Yeah, let them chase it.
All right.
Rumors.
All right. Anything else, Dewey?
We do have a public comment towards the end of this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm guessing, and I've got Rolo up on the. So the next up is public comments on village business. I got Rolo for the committee of the whole.
I was going to bring up the dog park.
Perfect segue.
One of the things that, and I will say that.
Could you get him a
dog parks,
microphone?
specific Grants, one of the absolute musts is that there must be a known footprint for the park. You cannot apply for them saying, we'll put one somewhere. I mean, you have to have, the property where it's going and the perimeters, when you're applying for money, for fencing, and Jacksonville is a town that, benefited greatly from, I think they got $100,000 actually out of, the grant that they had, and they have built a beautiful park. We've been discussing things with, different vendors on, getting supplies, and, that I think people are willing to work with us, and team effort to have things come together. As it's been mentioned, we actually have raised some funds already. Those funds are being held in a special account with Chatham Friends of the Parks. That is being held aside for this right now. We have I mean, vets in the area are very interested in, in helping us out. They've contributed, already. And so, again, it's just something to add to the quality of life, because there's not many minutes in a day when you can't see people out and walking their dogs in Chatham. And it doesn't matter what time of day in Community Park, there are people walking their dogs out there, and I guarantee you, again, it will be a great thing. And hey, how about those pickleball courts? Get over there to see, so thank you. Again, part of the Public Properties Commission, we do want to make improvements and, betterments and make life better here in Chatham. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Rollo. Hey, and Rollo, with that committee, does the whole committee fully support the dog park? I mean, I think that'd be relevant to point out.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's one, that has been in front of us since that committee was formed.
Yeah.
Because there was a survey done, 7 or 8 years ago, and that was, a biggie at the time then. Dog park. So.
Is there
going back to your grant?
Sorry, you
Go ahead.
I was just wondering what the percentage of people in Chatham who have dogs. Do we know? I bet it's like more than half. It's got to be like 90%.
Speaking of the census.
Like, did we ask that question? I think everybody has a dog. I feel like everybody has
I
a
can
dog.
tell you from campaigning
Yeah,
2
yeah.
years ago, when you knocked on every other door,
Every-
there was
Yes.
at least one dog.
Everyone has a dog.
There's quite a few.
We need a dog park.
Quite a few. I also, yeah.
I'm actually training to be a census worker right now.
Yeah,
so I can
you should go
I can
around and
sneak that
ask.
in through Chatham.
And then come back and say 100% of the people, we have a dog. Everybody has a dog.
Well, thank you, Rollo. That's a perfect
I've got 3.
backup comments to Dewey. And it sounds like the main issue is having the park comprehensive plan voted on, which gives you the footprint to show where that footprint will be. So that sounds like that could go a long way with the grant submissions. Okay. Thank you.
And the board has final input on what goes in which park when they put those final maps together. So what he's trying to do is put his whole plan together. He's going to come in and talk to you and ask you what you think. And if you want to see something move from one park to another or this added and stuff,
Yeah.
you'll have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
The only reason that we picked that park right from the very beginning, because we had 2 baseball diamonds that weren't being used, and we thought we could take advantage of the fencing.
Yeah.
But it's just so wet all the time, nobody would ever go there.
So as to your footprint question, we're gonna see if we can reclaim some land and keep it dry. And then we'll know more once we've worked through the dryer issue.
Dave's getting some big blow dryers.
Old street sweep.
Yeah.
Old street
Yeah.
sweepers.
We're
Water right out.
We're reclaiming parts. We're reclaiming parts. All right, thank you. I don't have anyone else on the public comment of village business. You got one more, darling? Okay.
I went to the South Sangamon Water Committee, meeting, or Commissioners meeting, and I recorded it. I'm gonna go home and look at it again, because I remember them talking about the chloramine, and they said that it would be within the next few weeks. So if they say that at their meetings, and they don't hold to it, don't we have some type format that can be followed? I mean, they're saying it, and yet they're not doing it, and nobody is holding them accountable.
Well, I hope as their largest customer, we send them a letter saying, you just stated this in your own meeting. It would be a couple weeks, and if it's not done, then we raise that issue with them. Formally a letter, whether it comes from Jeff or Pat.
Well, I mean,
That's what I think needs to
have
happen.
Go home and look at, I recorded it, but out there I cannot get a signal to put it on Facebook, and I am not computer savvy, so I know it can be put on Facebook, I just don't know how to do it. But, I'm gonna go home and review that meeting and see if they did not say that.
Well, the secretary should have it in her minutes too, I would hope, or whoever the secretary is.
Well, yeah, the minutes can be put on.
I was at that meeting. They did say it. They did.
Then I hope, like I said, if it was said it would be a couple weeks, I hope we send a letter from the Village of Chatham, the biggest customer, Why in the H have you not done this?
We've been a lot more successful with the routes we've taken where we just start lining up the people to get them out there to move rather than.
I mean, we're saying
Whatever it takes to get it done. We've been told soon, 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 and soon has not happened. Soon has been almost a year now, or over a year.
That company was supposed to be there the next week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they said that right in the meeting. So, you know, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a trustee, I do not have any other than I recorded it and it's in there.
Well, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think them saying it is legally binding.
Well, to me, it's lying to us if they're saying they're
Well,
going to do it in a
it's-
few weeks. Then
it's
we as their
misleading.
customer tell them it needs to get done now.
It certainly is misleading to us as the biggest customer, yes. I'm just saying in terms of a legal recourse.
And then the people at home that say, oh, it was supposed to be done a couple weeks ago and it's still not done,
Yeah.
then what? Then it's an issue, and it still is an issue.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any more public comment on village business. Schedule of meetings, committee of the whole, 6:15 PM, Municipal Hall, September 10th. No reason for a closed session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Trustee Detmers had made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Manning, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.